If you only had 1 hour left to live, what would you do? This man is holding a DVD left behind by the very person who tried to kill him. The disc contains a full recording of how he was poisoned, almost like a twisted farewell gift. As it turns out, our bald guy is one of the top hitmen working for a notorious crime syndicate. The man on the tape is Verona, one of his fellow assassins. But instead of shaking hands and saying goodbye, Verona injects him with a mysterious Chinese drug. According to him, the poison will gradually slow down his heart rate until it completely stops. And that gives him about 1 hour to live. As if that wasn't enough, Verona even recorded the whole thing just to mock him, like he is filming a vacation vlog. After watching the tape, the hitman smashes his TV into pieces. At that moment, he completely snaps. With nothing left to lose, he now has only 2 goals: stay alive and get revenge. He immediately rushes to his car, using driving skills so insane that anyone who has survived rush hour traffic would probably salute him. He calls his personal doctor. Unfortunately, he only reaches the assistant. He tells her to let the doctor know he is about to become a very dead man, and if the doctor doesn't call back soon, they're all coming along for the ride. The moment the call ends, his vision starts getting blurry. His heartbeat is slowing down, so he floors the gas pedal and pushes the engine to its limits, hoping the adrenaline will keep him alive. Next, he calls his trusted sidekick and orders him to find Verona immediately. The bald assassin then tracks down a local gang and points a gun directly at the leader. He forces a man inside for a private conversation. Within seconds, every gang member has a gun pointed at his head. But at this point, he isn't afraid of anybody anymore. He only wants one answer. Where is Verona? The gang leader tells him that Verona owes him money too. In fact, he has been looking for that guy himself. Hearing this, the assassin suddenly likes him a lot more. He lowers his weapon. Just like that, the two go from enemies to business partners. Then his heart slows down again. He nearly collapses on the spot. But whenever trouble shows up, crazy ideas aren't far behind. He asks the gang leader to sell him some drugs. Even though the amount would probably make an elephant reconsider its life choices, he still feels absolutely nothing. So he comes up with another plan. He announces that he is about to beat up everyone in the room, and immediately punches the nearest guy. Then he shouts, "Do you know who I am? Come on, I'll take all of you." Right after saying that, he turns around and runs straight back to his car. The whole point was simply to get his heart pumping faster. While driving, he finally gets in touch with the doctor. But there is another problem. The police are now chasing him because he is driving like he is competing in an illegal street race. He crashes straight into a supermarket. Everything in his path gets destroyed. After tearing through half the building, his car spins out of control and flips onto an escalator. Somehow, he crawls out almost completely unharmed. Maybe death just had other appointments today. He runs outside and spots a taxi. Without hesitation, he throws the passenger out and takes the seat. The second the cab pulls away, police swarm the crash scene. He orders the driver to take him directly to the home of a crime syndicate's boss, a man named Carlos. At the moment, Carlos is enjoying the good life. Fine drinks, a luxury pool, and beautiful women. While Carlos relaxes in the water, the assassin suddenly jumps into the pool and signals him to come up for a chat. He explains that Verona poisoned him and demands justice. Carlos refuses, because he wants him dead too. Hearing that, the hitman is seconds away from punching him in the face. "You've been my boss for way too long." Unfortunately, Carlos is surrounded by armed bodyguards, so he swallows his anger and walks away. Outside the gate, the taxi driver refuses to let him back in because he is soaking wet. Without wasting a second, he drags the driver out of the car and starts yelling that the guy is a terrorist. Then he steals the cab and speeds off. A few moments later, the doctor finally calls back. He explains that the hitman's body desperately needs adrenaline. The hospital has some, and he needs to get it immediately. The doctor also mentions that fighting, or intense physical activity, can help generate adrenaline naturally. Right then, his sidekick calls. He has found Verona's brother. The assassin heads there immediately and takes care of him in record time. Then he calls Verona and casually informs him that his brother won't be coming home. Verona completely loses it. He swears he'll make the hitman's girlfriend suffer. Remembering the doctor's advice, the assassin rushes to a hospital, but the nurses refuse to help him. Thankfully, years of surviving on the streets have taught him a thing or two. He learns that some nasal sprays contain ingredients that can help stimulate his system. So he grabs several bottles and starts spraying them nonstop like he is testing free perfume samples. Unfortunately, his behavior attracts a little too much attention. The hospital quickly alerts the police. Realizing he is about to become a wanted man again, he comes up with another idea. He disguises himself as a patient. Although most patients don't usually hide a handgun under their arm, He corners a hospital employee and forces him to get adrenaline. Once he finally has it, he demands an immediate injection. Time is running out. The employee uses a defibrillator. The shock launches him backward like a rocket. At that exact moment, police officers storm the building. He pulls out his gun, threatens everyone, pushes the employee out, and shuts the elevator doors. If you're going to do something crazy, you might as well go all the way. So he injects an entire syringe of adrenaline into his body. The problem is, he has absolutely no idea what the correct dosage is, and he just overdosed. From this moment on, life suddenly becomes a lot more colorful for him. He runs outside feeling like he is floating several feet above the ground. Everything around him starts looking strangely magical. The doctor calls and tells him they'll meet in about 20 minutes. He also warns him about a very awkward side effect. His body will remain permanently locked in combat-ready mode. And sure enough, the doctor wasn't kidding. While standing in front of a wanted poster featuring his own face, a man nearby seems to recognize him. But the second the guy looks down, he immediately turns away like he just witnessed something he can never unsee. The bald hitman instantly rushes outside and steals a police officer's gun. The officer is so confused that he practically begs for it back. In return, he gets a kick for his troubles. The hitman then tosses the gun away and jumps onto a nearby motorcycle. The owner can only watch in complete disbelief. At this point, the streets are being terrorized by a man whose confidence has surpassed both the law and the laws of physics. He is no longer riding with his hands. He is riding with pure determination. He lets go of the handlebars entirely. The wind carries away whatever dignity he still had left. Suddenly, a lot of questionable life choices start making perfect sense. A short time later, the motorcycle crashes straight into a roadside stand and sends him flying. Yet somehow, he walks away with barely a scratch. Main character immunity is one hell of a superpower. Right then, his girlfriend Eva calls. She says she misses him and wants to see him immediately. Only minutes later, he arrives at her house wearing a fresh set of clothes. He gives Eva a kiss and quickly checks the area. Then he tells her to get dressed because they need to leave. Just as they step outside, Eva remembers she forgot to turn off the microwave and heads back in. At that exact moment, the house phone rings. The hitman immediately realizes it's one of Verona's men checking the location. If someone answers, the assassination plan moves forward. He rushes outside and spots a man making a phone call near the entrance. Without saying a word, he knocks the guy unconscious, then calmly walks back inside as if absolutely nothing happened. The two continue on their way. But before long, he notices another assassin following them. He deliberately spills all of Eva's belongings onto the ground. As she bends down to pick everything up, she misses what happens next. A few quick punches later, the assassin has officially retired from the profession. Permanently. Afterward, he takes Eva to a restaurant in Chinatown. There, he finally decides to tell her the truth. He confesses that he is a professional hitman. Some time ago, Carlos ordered him to assassinate Don Kim, the leader of the triads. But because he wanted to retire and live peacefully with Eva, he spared the man's life. Carlos believed the mission had been completed, and to make sure no loose ends led back to him, he decided to eliminate the hitman as well. Eva doesn't believe a single word. She assumes he has had the craziest day imaginable and has completely lost his mind. The bald assassin tries to explain, but it's hopeless. Then the poison hits him again. He collapses right in front of her. Suddenly, he remembers the doctor's advice. Strong emotional stimulation can trigger an adrenaline rush. Immediately, he proposes a very bold solution. Eva rejects the idea on the spot. After all, there are plenty of people nearby. Still, he keeps trying to convince her while reminding her that his life is literally on the line. Eventually, she changes her mind. Maybe because she realizes how serious his condition is. Or maybe for another reason that is harder to explain. The drug's side effects are still running wild, and he completely loses control. Within moments, the two become the center of attention for the entire neighborhood. Passengers on a nearby bus get far more entertainment than they expected that day. The cheering sounds like they're watching a live sporting event. And right at the most dramatic moment, his phone rings. His psychic calls to say he has found Verona. The meeting location is an industrial factory. Unfortunately, it's actually a trap. The psychic has already been captured. Eva is furious that everything gets interrupted at the worst possible time. It's like your favorite show losing power right before the season finale. The bald hitman quickly heads to the factory. He climbs onto the roof and quietly approaches the target area. Spotting a guard above him, he lifts the man clean off his feet and throws him over the edge. Then he enters the building and confronts the assassins inside. One glance is enough to tell him his psychic isn't coming back. Just as he raises his gun, he sees Eva arriving in an elevator. Apparently, she still wasn't willing to stay out of trouble. He immediately opens fire and takes down several gunmen. Then he uses one of their bodies as a shield while moving toward her. Unfortunately, he gets shot in the leg. Fighting through the pain, he and Eva make their way downstairs. A large gunman chases after them, but the hitman circles around behind him and lands a surprise attack. Then introduces the guy to an industrial machine that definitely wasn't designed for human interaction. The man's screams echo throughout the factory. The hitman and Eva run outside. The assassins above continue firing nonstop. He fires back, and somehow nobody manages to hit anybody. After that, the two jump into a car and speed away. The surviving thugs immediately follow behind. A few minutes later, he says his heart is starting to slow down again. Eva is worried about his life. At the same time, she is still trying to process everything that has happened, so she decides to help in her own unique way. The hitman honestly doesn't know what to say. This might be the first time in his life that he hopes his condition doesn't improve too quickly. He spins his handgun with ridiculous style and fires. One shot instantly sends the driver of the pursuing vehicle into early retirement. The car loses control, crashes into another vehicle, and flips several times down the road. But after driving a little farther, Eva suddenly stops her treatment. She gives him a dangerous smile, mostly because she is still getting revenge for him leaving earlier. The bald assassin can only stare into the distance and rethink his life choices. Then he casually turns around and shoots another pursuer. After that, he steps out of the car. Cold and focused, he eliminates every remaining enemy. No survivors. Once everything is over, he and Eva stop at a small convenience store. The hitman limps inside while leaving his girlfriend outside. But after sitting there for a while, Eva starts getting worried and decides to follow him in. Eva follows him inside. What she finds is the bald hitman treating his gunshot wound using methods that would probably make every licensed doctor in America immediately raise their blood pressure. Right then, his phone rings. It's the doctor. He tells him to come over immediately. The hitman heads there without wasting a second. After examining him, the doctor lets out a long sigh. I've done everything I can. Your condition is extremely complicated. At best, you've only got a few days left. Hearing that, the bald assassin realizes he truly has nothing left to lose. He immediately calls Verona and arranges a final meeting in a downtown building. His offer is simple. He'll trade the necklace belonging to Verona's brother in exchange for the antidote. Verona agrees instantly, mostly because he doesn't actually have an antidote, only more poison. The bald hitman walks alone into enemy territory. The guards tell him to leave his weapons outside. Without hesitation, he complies and calmly walks in. Carlos opens a briefcase. Inside is a syringe, the exact same substance that poisoned him in the first place. Carlos orders his men to hold him down so they can inject another dose. But then the hitman suddenly raises his hand and forms a finger gun. The entire room freezes. Everyone tenses up instantly. Verona thinks he is joking and starts laughing. Then the hitman suddenly points at one of the guards. Bang! A bullet tears straight through the man's forehead. The only problem is, the shot didn't come from him. It came from the triads. The crime boss whose life he spared has returned the favor. Carlos and Verona believe the man was dead, so seeing him walk through the door completely breaks their brains for a few seconds. The triads immediately open fire. Bullets start flying everywhere. At this point, nobody is even aiming anymore. The ambush is so sudden that Carlos's men don't stand a chance. The entire place erupts into chaos. With no other option, Carlos and Verona turn and run. Both men sprint toward a helicopter waiting on the rooftop. The bald hitman immediately chases after them. At last, he catches Carlos, just as the crime boss is climbing aboard the helicopter. He grabs him and presses a gun against him. But at that exact moment, Verona attacks from behind. Another dose of poison goes straight into the hitman's body. His legs immediately give out beneath him. Taking advantage of the situation, Verona kills Carlos himself. Apparently promotions are much easier when the boss is no longer breathing. With Carlos gone, Verona becomes the new kingpin. He jumps into the helicopter, then orders the pilot to take off immediately. By now, the hitman's vision is fading fast. His head is spinning harder than the helicopter blades above him. But somehow, through pure determination, he manages to grab hold of Verona. At the same time, he knocks the gun from his hand. Then comes one final move, a legendary headbutt, the kind that instantly reminds football fans of Zidane in the 2006 World Cup final. The helicopter continues climbing higher and higher, yet the bald assassin refuses to let go. Seconds later, both men tumble out of the aircraft, plummeting toward the ground below. During the fall, he wraps his hands around Verona's throat and squeezes with everything he has left. By the time they hit the ground, Verona is already dead. The villain never gets another chance to open his eyes. The hitman slowly pulls out his phone and calls Eva. His voice is weak now, barely hanging on. I love you. There are still so many things I wanted to do with you, but I don't think I'm going to make it. Then he lets the phone slip from his hand. And just like that, the craziest journey of his life comes to an end. Or at least, that's how it should have ended. But this is Crank, a movie where logic takes frequent coffee breaks. And our bald antihero seems to have a very special arrangement with death itself. Because somehow, he survives. As for what happens afterward, let us just say he and Eva get another chance to spend some quality time together. And that's where this absolutely insane action thriller finally comes to an end. Thousands of people showed up expecting a horse race. Instead, they witnessed something so outrageous that it completely stole the show. Within minutes, the entire stadium erupted into chaos. The crowd wasn't cheering for the horses anymore. Every eye was locked on one man fighting against time, desperately trying to stay alive. The screams, the excitement, and the pure madness spread through the arena like wildfire. And if that wasn't crazy enough, the whole thing was being broadcast live to hundreds of thousands of viewers watching from home. Just when it looked like things couldn't get any more insane, Chev suddenly spotted the man he had been hunting this entire time, Johnny Vang. The moment their eyes met, nothing else mattered. Without hesitation, Chev abandoned everything, including Eva, and launched himself into a reckless chase through the packed stadium. Imagine watching the most unbelievable moment of your life, and then suddenly realizing the real action is only just beginning. Since he is the main character, and apparently has a premium insurance policy with death itself, falling several thousand feet from the sky somehow doesn't turn him into a human pancake. Instead, Chev Chelios lands almost completely intact. While any normal person would end up in a physics textbook, he is lying in the middle of the street reflecting on life when a group of mysterious men in black suddenly appears. They scoop him up with shovels like they're cleaning up after a dog and haul him away. Half conscious, Chev wakes up on an operating table surrounded by Chinese surgeons preparing to remove his heart. The man behind it all is Johnny Vang, a gangster covered in piercings who casually smokes while watching the operation. At one point, he even flicks cigarette ashes directly onto Chev's exposed heart. If Chev had opened his eyes right then, that operating room would instantly become a crime scene. Before long, the surgeons remove his heart and place it inside a refrigerated container. Then they replace it with an artificial heart pulled from a special preservation tank, complete with an external charging system. The artificial heart is only meant to keep him alive temporarily. Their real plan is to keep him breathing long enough to harvest even more organs. In other words, he is being treated like a premium organ donor subscription package. The second he realizes what body part they're planning to take next, Chev completely loses it. Nobody likes people borrowing personal property without permission. He sits up like a zombie returning from the dead and immediately gives the two nearest guys the worst shift of their careers. After that, he steals some clothes from a customer getting a massage nearby and escapes onto the rooftop. Already frustrated because he can't reach Eva, he suddenly finds himself being handed a gun. Because when an action movie protagonist needs a weapon, the universe somehow delivers. Armed once again, Chev resumes hunting Johnny Vang, the man currently carrying his real heart. And when one of the world's deadliest hitmen wants something back, entire neighborhoods tend to suffer. After shocking a large thug with an electric device, the guy instantly starts talking. Johnny Vang's next stop is a place called Cypress Club. Without wasting a second, Chev smashes a car window and jumps inside. Just as he's about to drive away, he discovers that the battery powering his artificial heart is nearly dead. Naturally, he connects the car's electrical system directly to his body. The effect feels like plugging into a high-speed charger. Instantly re-energized, he tears through the city like a hurricane, even crashing through a gang hideout along the way. Meanwhile, Doc Miles is relaxing with his assistant when he nearly spits out his drink after receiving a phone call. He can't believe Chev is still alive. The doctor explains that the artificial heart runs on an implanted battery, and keeping it charged is now Chev's full-time job. There are only two ways to do that: use an external charger or rely on the induction charging system built into his body. Unfortunately, right after getting directions to Cypress Club, Chev crashes again. The vehicle is destroyed, he is thrown through the air, and the external charger is wrecked as well. But if there's one thing we've learned, it's that obstacles only encourage him to make worse decisions. Thinking quickly, he borrows some electricity from a nearby street racing crew. At this point, it isn't luck protecting him anymore. It's practically Thor himself. After getting recharged, Chev feels like he has been resurrected for a second time and immediately races toward the club. The moment he arrives, a prostitute gets kicked straight through the front entrance. Seconds later, a large thug appears. Chev immediately asks, "Are you Johnny Vang?" The guy simply shakes his head and gets knocked unconscious before he can say another word. Sometimes answering verbally is the safer option. Chev storms into the club and turns the entire place upside down. People run through the front door, jump out windows, and search desperately for exits in the back. Nobody knows what is happening, but everybody agrees it's time to leave. Amid the chaos, Johnny Vang escapes with Chev's heart. The prostitute, meanwhile, is still furious at the big guy. Apparently her earlier experience was less than impressive, so she decides to teach him a painful lesson using a bicycle. Right then, two gangsters show up, but Chev quickly handles both of them. Grateful for the rescue, the woman tells him where Johnny Vang is hiding, inside a strip club. There, a furious member of the Mexican mafia named Venus is threatening Johnny Vang with a knife for letting Chev escape. But the biggest surprise comes when Eva shows up. She genuinely believed her boyfriend was dead, and Eva has never been the type to enjoy being single for very long. Their emotional reunion is immediately followed by a completely insane crank-style shootout. Unfortunately for the customers, they came looking for entertainment and accidentally purchased front-row seats to a battlefield. The gangsters look terrifying enough, but their accuracy leaves a lot to be desired. After dealing with the criminals, Chev questions one survivor. "Why are you doing this to me?" The guy admits he has no idea and says he's just following orders. The moment Chev walks outside, the police arrive. He is about to look cool in front of Eva when his artificial heart decides it's the perfect time to run low on power. Seconds later, he is beaten to the ground. To be fair, the police in this movie are incredibly enthusiastic. They swing their batons like they're competing for Olympic medals. It looks like the end of the road for Chev until one officer suddenly pulls out a taser and fires directly into him. The effect is immediate. Chev practically comes back from the dead. Freshly recharged, he jumps to his feet, takes on an entire group of police officers by himself, then casually steals a police motorcycle and speeds away. While driving, he asks Eva why she never got his message. It turns out that when he was falling from the sky, he did call her. The only thing she heard was endless wind noise. And technically speaking, he had been missing for almost 3 months. As he rides, Chev continues finding creative ways to recharge his system. Judging by the look on his face, none of them are particularly comfortable. He calls Doc Miles and warns him that the battery is running low again. The doctor immediately tells him to keep charging constantly if he wants to stay alive. And if he manages to recover his real heart, he should bring it back immediately so it can be put where it belongs. A short time later, his path is blocked by a massive protest march. Not wanting any more attention from the police, he abandons the bike and continues on foot. Then he spots someone riding a skateboard. Naturally, he decides to try it himself. The landing goes exactly as badly as you'd expect, and he discovers a brand new kind of pain that absolutely nobody would volunteer to experience. Running through a nearby park, Chev spots 2 thugs torturing a dog with an electric shock collar. Looking at the device, he honestly thinks it might be more useful on him than on the poor animal. So he removes the collar and straps it around his own neck. The 2 guys stare at him like they just met an alien. Unfortunately, the tiny amount of electricity still isn't enough to keep his artificial heart running. Just as the police begin surrounding him, help arrives once again. The man behind the wheel is the hyperactive twin brother of Chev's partner who died in the first movie. Let us just say this guy's driving style makes normal people nervous. Unsurprisingly, the vehicle crashes within minutes, and both men are launched into the street. The way they land on top of each other creates a very different story for anyone watching from a distance. After hearing how his brother died, the long-haired twin becomes furious and immediately promises to help Chev get revenge. Together they head to a horse racing track in search of Johnny Vang. Unfortunately, Chev's artificial heart is running low on power again. Doc Miles explains that he needs to generate body friction to activate the charging system. In simple terms, he needs electricity, and he needs it fast. Chev immediately approaches a heavily tattooed guy nearby and starts trying to make this plan work. The poor man has absolutely no idea what is happening and quickly decides to leave the area before things get any weirder. That's when Eva arrives, and the first thing she sees is Chev attempting to recharge himself with an elderly woman. Naturally, he tries to explain that his life literally depends on it. Not long afterward, Chev and Eva resume their usual teamwork. What starts in the grandstands quickly moves all the way onto the racetrack itself. The crowd originally came to watch horse racing, but they end up getting a completely different form of entertainment. The cheering echoes throughout the stadium as the two become the center of attention. To make things even crazier, the entire event is broadcast to hundreds of thousands of viewers. Right in the middle of all this, Chev spots Johnny Vang in the stands. He immediately cuts the recharge session short and takes off after him, leaving Eva behind once again. It's basically like your favorite movie suddenly cutting to commercials during the best scene. The chase is on. Johnny Vang calls for a pickup vehicle and tries to escape. Without hesitation, Chev jumps straight onto the moving car. Unfortunately, even after all that, he still can't recover his heart. Then a luxury vehicle suddenly appears. Chev is pulled inside and finds himself face to face with Don Kim and his men. Don Kim explains that the former leader of the Triads was a man named Poon Dong, an elderly boss respected almost like a saint. Unfortunately, Poon Dong is suffering from severe heart disease and desperately needs Chev's real heart. As for the mysterious crime boss Chev has been searching for, even Don Kim doesn't know his identity. And just to be clear, Don Kim didn't come to help. He came to deliver Chev to Poon Dong. Hearing this makes Chev furious, especially since he spared Don Kim's life in the previous film. Without another word, he grabs a bodyguard and uses him as a human shield while unloading an automatic weapon with his other hand. Within seconds, the luxury car turns into a rolling cemetery. Miraculously, Chev steps out without taking a single bullet. Moments later, he spots an electrical substation on the roadside. Naturally, he opens the door and sticks his hand inside. A massive surge of electricity blasts him backward, but his battery is fully charged again. And once more, he resumes the hunt for Johnny Vang. Meanwhile, footage from Chev's horse racing adventure has already made national television. Reporters even managed to interview the elderly woman involved. She seems absolutely thrilled by the experience and openly admits she'd love to see Chev again someday. Elsewhere, the leader of the Mexican mafia is absolutely furious. He cannot accept the fact that Venus allowed Chev to survive. In his world, mistakes always come with consequences, painful consequences. At the same time, Eva is still annoyed about being abandoned yet again. That's when a random man approaches and starts flirting with her. After surviving a disastrous marriage, he is convinced Eva would make a much better partner. In his mind, even a reckless bald assassin is a better choice than some of the alternatives. Eva responds by teaching him a lesson he'll never forget, then throws him directly onto the hood of a nearby car. Right on cue, the police arrive and arrest her. Meanwhile, Chev spots an ambulance driving through the city and immediately jumps inside. There, paramedics are desperately trying to save Don Kim's life. Chev calmly tells them, "I shot him. Now grab the defibrillator and hit me with it." For most people, being shocked with a defibrillator sounds terrifying. For Chev, it's basically a spa treatment. The moment he gets recharged, he notices Johnny Vang outside and immediately kicks open the ambulance doors. Before chasing him, Chev calls Doc Miles and announces that he has finally found the man who stole his heart. The doctor sounds like he is about to reveal something important, but Chev hangs up before hearing it. At this point, he only has two things on his mind: get his heart back and get revenge. Gun in hand, he chases Johnny Vang through the city. Their firefight quickly turns entire city blocks into complete chaos. Meanwhile, the paramedic Chev traumatized in the first movie is still attending therapy. His psychologist recommends getting outside, enjoying fresh air, and finding happiness in life again. Feeling inspired, the paramedic finally stands up with a smile. A split second later, a stray bullet from Chev's gunfight ricochets off an obstacle and flies directly into his head. If there were a world championship for bad luck, this guy would definitely be competing for first place. Eventually, Chev catches up to Johnny Vang at a massive power station. He spreads his arms wide and absorbs an enormous surge of electricity directly from the grid. The energy rush is unbelievable. For a moment, he feels less like a hitman and more like a superhero battling pure evil. The fight that follows is completely insane, unfolding in front of a handful of confused bystanders who have absolutely no idea what they're witnessing. And finally, Chev wins the fight. But when he opens the container Johnny Vang has been carrying this entire time, his heart isn't inside. A few moments later, Doc Miles finally calls with a major breakthrough. Chev's real heart has already been transplanted into the body of Poon Dong. To make matters even more complicated, the doctor has already sent his assistant, Lisa, to recover it. Meanwhile, Chev uses his fingers like a pretend handgun and pressures Johnny Vang into revealing Poon Dong's location. The funny thing is, this time Johnny actually gets shot for real. The trigger just isn't pulled by Chev. Instead, Venus and his crew arrive and open fire. One of the gangsters casually knocks Chev unconscious before he can react. As for Poon Dong, receiving a brand new heart has completely transformed him. The old man suddenly feels decades younger. His energy levels are through the roof. He is enjoying life like a teenager who just discovered unlimited stamina. The only problem is that his taste in women is a little unusual. Surrounded by beautiful young women, Poon Dong somehow becomes obsessed with Lisa, the doctor's assistant. While unconscious, Chev begins reliving his past. Even as a child, he was the type of student teachers dreaded seeing every morning. Stealing money, stealing cars, fighting classmates. If there was a bad decision available, chances are he already tried it. When he finally wakes up, he discovers he is being dragged behind a speedboat. Not exactly the ideal recovery process. Shortly afterward, he is brought before the leader of the Mexican mafia. It turns out Chev previously killed 2 of the Manes brothers, which explains why the crime boss has dedicated his life to getting revenge. The boss leads him into a large tent, and when the curtain opens, Chev is greeted by one of the strangest sights in the entire movie. Verona is still alive. Well, part of him is. What is left is basically just a talking head. The crime boss then throws away Chev's charging device and begins torturing him. He hits him like he is trying to make up for every punch he never threw during his entire life. Just when things look completely hopeless, Chev's hyperactive ally suddenly arrives with reinforcements. The twin brother of his former partner has come to help. Both sides immediately start exchanging gunfire. The entire area turns into a full-scale action movie battlefield. While everyone is distracted shooting at each other, Chev makes his move and attacks the crime boss directly. Venus rushes in to protect his boss, a decision that immediately becomes the biggest mistake of his life. Because Chev is no longer interested in having conversations. Only seconds later, Venus officially exits the movie. Unfortunately, Chev's battery is almost completely drained. With the last bit of strength remaining, he climbs a nearby power pole and grabs onto a high-voltage power source with both hands. A massive surge of electricity explodes through his body. The energy is so powerful that his entire body bursts into flames. He is launched backward like a rocket that has completely lost control. At this point, he looks less like a hitman and more like a version of Ghost Rider without the motorcycle. His rage reaches maximum level. He charges forward and repeatedly punches the crime boss in the face, then lifts him into the air and throws him straight into the water. At long last, the final enemy gets exactly what he deserves. After sending him to the afterlife, Chev feels completely satisfied. There is just one small problem. He is still on fire. Not long afterward, he collapses unconscious. Meanwhile, Lisa successfully tricks Poon Dong into meeting with Doc Miles. The final surgery is performed, and Chev's real heart is finally returned to its rightful owner. Sometime later, he wakes up in a hospital bed. His entire body is wrapped in bandages. He looks like a mummy that just came back from a vacation. But the most important thing is this. He is alive, exactly as the audience hoped. Hair may be optional, but apparently Chev Chelios is not. And that is how Crank, High Voltage comes to an end. If you enjoyed this movie recap, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more action movie recaps and movie explain videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.